Countdown to training camp officially official. It is SNL presented by Prize Picks. We got about 7-ish weeks, 7+ weeks till training camp, I would say, if I had to guess. And we got a lot of stuff to get into. Landry Locker, Cody Stutes with you. We will be live at Spanky's, by the way, Friday the 26th. The next gathering is going to be Friday the 26th, Spanky's, Sharpstown. We hope to see you there. I want to talk about CJ Stroud's place among AFC South quarterbacks, but I want to start with kind of the third phase, Cody. We don't talk a lot about special teams because, quite frankly, special teams have been awesome. They've been awesome with Frank Ross. There's been some ups and some downs. There's been some times, specifically last year, where special teams wasn't up to the standard that Frank Ross had set early on. But for the most part, Ka'imi Fairbairn has been the lipstick on the pig of the offensive operation under D'Amico Ryans. The punting has been okay. The coverage has been all right. But I do wonder if the Texans are kind of playing with fire on special teams at the moment, specifically with the kicking game. And I'll start with the punting. And I'm actually also going to go to Ka'imi Fairbairn, but I just wonder if we look back at everything they've done this offseason and we come to the realization that perhaps they didn't handle the punting situation as well as they probably should have, especially with the way that we envision and the way that they like to play football.
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. They've bet on two unproven quantities to figure out their punting situation. Kai Kroger punted last year, but he wasn't very good for the New Orleans Saints.
He was awful.
Jack Stonehouse is an undrafted free agent rookie who punted for Syracuse last year. And he was good, not great probably by college football standards. And they're going to rely on one of those two guys to be their punter this year. In addition to that, also be the holder for Ka'imi Fairbairn on field goals and extra points. And yeah, it's when you think about the buttoned up, push the chips into the table operation that they've put together where they continued to add to the defense. They went out there and spent on the offensive line like they haven't spent before with multi-year investments. And they added to all these various pieces of the team with the draft. And you look at it's like, you guys sure do punt a lot. Didn't you want something a little bit more serious, a little bit more proven in that spot? Because we know they punt quite a bit. I mean, they've had to just pin them back and trust the defense a time or two or 10 or 100 last year. And even if the offense gets a little bit better, you're still going to have a defensive-minded head coach that's going to look over and say, yeah, my defense has got this. Go ahead and kick this thing. Do you have a lot of faith in the punters that they've chosen to go into this competition with?
Yeah, and they didn't look that good, quite frankly, in front of us with what we saw. And I don't know, like, there's a lot of times where stuff happens in front of you this time of the season. It's like, well, wait till they put the pads on. Or, they're trying to get on the same page. Maybe I'm being a simp. Maybe it's kind of like a meathead football mentality. I just don't feel like punting is one of those things that, okay, this looks completely different. And if you're going to play football the way the Texans have, and a lot of these problems could be solved with a better offense. I'm not ready to pound the table for this offense and say it's going to be significantly better either. You're going to need to punt well. And that also brings me to the kicker, Ka'imi Fairbairn. And I think in some ways, Ka'imi Fairbairn has kind of been able to kind of blind the analogy that I used earlier was lipstick on the pig of the offense. He's kind of been able to like bail them out a lot of times when most kickers in the league wouldn't be able to do that. And you look at the number of 50-yard field goals he's making, and really it's kind of a league-wide thing, but he's near the top. You look at the records that he's setting, and you look at the margin for error that the Texans have. I think inevitably Ka'imi Fairbairn's not going to be kicking at this same level that we've become accustomed to. And again, this is going to go back to the offense, but I think another like big picture part of this layout is I'm not completely ready to trust the offense just yet. So I think these things are just as important, but inevitably Ka'imi Fairbairn in the next couple of years, maybe this year, maybe the year after, he's not going to kick like this. It just doesn't happen. I know that kickers don't get worn out like players. It's not like running back. But you see Kyamie Fairbairn, he misses games every year. He misses more games for a kicker than most kickers that we've ever seen. They've had to win a couple of games without him. And it's kind of like golf. Like eventually, like in your 30s or whatever, you kind of fall off. Kicking is a lot like golf. And we're watching him the other day, and it can be much ado about nothing. But that's the first time in my entire time covering Kyamie Fairbairn, and I've done it for the overwhelming majority of his time. Anytime there's been an open practice, I've watched him kick. I've never watched him miss 2 consecutive kicks. I saw it for the first time last week. Now, he did recover nicely, and he did hit the rest. I've never the rest of the field goals that day, but I've never seen Kyamie Fairbairn miss 2 field goals in a row. And we see this with kickers all the time that are at that high level. We saw it with Justin Tucker, although he had some other stuff going on. Mike Vanderjagt back in the Peyton Manning days. Like, it just kind of happens around this age, and it's typically around 32, 33 where it starts to happen. And it will be fine if the Texans offense is able to score more in the red zone and it kind of cancels out. But if they're not going to play better on offense and they're not going to be better, I don't think you can rely on seeing this version of Kyamie Fairbairn much longer. And when I see something that I've never seen, it kind of catches my attention, especially when it's something that they've relied on so much.
Yeah, so the misses from practice, I don't know what your yardage was on them. I had them both as 50-plus yarders.
49.
49?
Mm-hmm.
50, 49. Okay. A yard here or there. He only missed 50-plus last year. He made everything under 49. 49 and under, he made everything last year. I'm with you, though. Like,
I've never seen him, but even at 50, I've never seen him miss 2 straight. Ever.
The red zone stuff doesn't bother me because those are short field goals that he's kicking. It's the worry that they were comfortable letting him kick those 50-yarders. It's the worry that they were willing to be conservative as an offense because they just relied on Kyamie Fairbairn to go out there and kick those long 45-plus, 50-plus field goals. That's what I don't want to see, and that's what I don't want the Texans to rely on, and that's where my big worry is. I'm not worried about, oh, God, Kaylee was off on the red zone again. Oh, CJ missed this guy, and he's got to kick a 30-something yarder. That's what I'm not worried about those. I'm worried about their operation and their willingness to trust him in some of those long-range situations because we've seen him play for the kick too many times.
50-yard kicks. Like, not just play for kicks, play for 50-yard kicks.
Yeah, we've seen him play for not automatic kicks way too many times, and we've seen them, especially at the end of halves, not know how to press the gas pedal the right way. And sometimes it's trying to get into easy field goal range. Sometimes it's trying to score. Sometimes it's like, well, we'll just kind of see what Kyamie Fairbairn brings to the table. But yeah, he's going to be 32. It's going to be his 10th year in the NFL. And it's going to be a pretty interesting situation to watch evolve because hopefully the offense is a lot better or at least a little bit better. And you're relying on him a little bit less in the red zone. And they're good enough that you don't have to settle for some of those 40-something yard, 45-plus yarders, 50-yarders that they were very content to take an attempt with last year. I mean, if I'm looking at the stats right, he had the most, second most 50-yard-plus attempts in his career, and the second most was 2024, again, with D'Amico Ryans as the head coach. So their willingness to kick those long ones and just kind of punt on the offense and just let Kyamie handle it, that's what I'm more worried about than the shorter stuff.
I just think it's inevitable that you can't rely on him as much as you have. And I think it really just comes down to the offense needs to do their part. And that's really what it's going to come down to in some way, shape, or form. The offense is going to have to do their part. And they're going to have to not depend on Kyamie Fairbairn. And I also think Kyamie Fairbairn has done as much as he can. I can't remember the last time I watched the Texans and I said, you know, when it comes to dividing up the piece of complimentary pie, when it comes to complimentary football, the offense had the largest chunk of the pie. Maybe the Jacksonville game with Davis Mills, the comeback, maybe.
No, because the defense had to be perfect in the second half.
Yeah, the defense had to be perfect, and Davis Mills did throw the early interception. But from like the second quarter on, they were getting points. I mean, that was probably the largest chunk they've had, but I just can't remember a time when I've had that. I've had that with special teams, and I've had that with defense. I think the offense is just going to have to do its part.
Well, look, the whole offseason is built around the offense has to be better. They focused on adding pieces that should help the run game. It's the big offseason of CJ Stroud. It's no hidden secret that they can't just put the same offense out there and expect to get anywhere close to where they are and go where they ultimately need to go and want to go. So yeah, the offense has got to get better, and hopefully it's around that midfield and into house stuff, so they're not relying on Kaimi Fairbairn as much. While we're talking about this, I wanted to go take a look because Fairbairn, with his field goals last year, his 44 made field goals, he tied the single season record that David Akers had. Now, Akers did that when he was 37 for the 49ers. So it's vastly different, 6-year age difference. But Akers was awful the next year. He went from an 85% field goal percentage made to 69%. And next thing you know, he's out of football pretty soon after that. It's like, you can't expect Kaimi to be awesome every year, especially when he's had some dips here and there in the career. So don't rely on him. Have a better offense, and certainly don't settle for some of those long kicks. Make it a little bit easier on him when you do call up on him.
It's gonna all come down to the red zone offense, which is something they've improved. Which I think when you just look at the pieces and like the eyes that you see between David Montgomery, the tight ends, the style in which and the way in which the interior offensive line guys look, the size of Jaden Higgins and Nico Collins-Paulus, there's a lot of hope when it comes to red zone offense. And that's really the bottom line is whether Kaimi Fairbairn is awesome or Kaimi Fairbairn has the natural dip, the offense has to do their part, and they've just relied on it too much. It's way too much dependency on Kaimi Fairbairn. And I just think eventually if you keep relying on it to that point, it's going to be a recipe for failure.
Well, they play so many close games too, like a missed field goal here or there, and you start flipping wins to losses. And if the offense is better, hopefully they're not playing close games. Hopefully they're not relying on Kaimi Fairbairn. And yeah, it's going to come down to getting a whole heck of a lot more out of the offense than they have been getting the past couple of seasons.
Swarm.
Beta Aaron says, breaking: Houston Texans expected to make Dare Ogunbowale the highest paid depth kicker in league history in a multi-year deal per sources.
Dare
is Dare going to be playing football this year?
I was going to say Dare doesn't have a job, best I can recall.
Can they bring him onto the practice squad? I could see them doing that. I could see them using some of that cap space. Is he practice squad eligible? What are the rules right now for that?
Yeah, you can have a handful of veterans on the practice squad.
Maybe they bring Dare back for vibes. Frank Ross going to get emotional with that one. Welcome back, Dare. No gig for Dare.
Yeah, it's not hurting my feelings.
The quarterback position. We've talked a lot about the quarterback position.
I do want one thing about the special teams before we move on. The Texans are one of only, I believe it's 6 teams to have more than one punter on the roster. So everybody else has kind of got this thing squared away. The Bills have a punting competition. The Ravens have a punting competition because the Ravens, I think he's an all-pro or at least a Pro Bowl guy. He left in free agency. The Browns have 3 punters, which whole nother discussion. I'm like flabbergasted when I was looking at it. And the Vikings and the Steelers have punting competitions, and they have established veterans versus rookies. So it's rare to have a punting competition in the upcoming training camp for the NFL. They're in the minority with that for sure.
It's kind of one of those things you just don't want to worry about. Like your specialists with how important they are and how good they've been. Like you just don't want to worry about it. Like it's ideally you just you know who your kicker is, you know who your deep snapper is, you know who your punter is, and from like a selfish standpoint with guys who will be at every training camp, it's cool to watch the competition. But when you watch the guys and it's like, yikes, like they're shanking one every 5. It just kind of concerns you a little bit when it comes to the punting.
I do wonder how much better they would have wanted out of Townsend to maybe just say, hey, let's keep him around, because he did not get some sort of massive contract in free agency. He got a 2-year, $5 million deal with the Titans. It's like I wonder how much better he needed to be for them to just say, let's do that again for another couple of years. Because I would assume part of moving on from Townsend is the hope that you could either replicate for cheaper or hopefully get better. As of now, it doesn't look like Stonehouse or Kroger is going to be better, but it's still training camp, and we'll see what this coverage unit ultimately ends up being too.
Swarm.
Willie Roy Boy says nobody can compare to the OG best kicker in Houston history, Randy Beer Can Bullock. Did he drink or was he just fat?
I don't know, but I do know he was drafted the same year that Tucker went undrafted.
Yeah, he was, and I also want to say he was in camp with Chris Boswell.
Yeah, Boswell was in camp with him, yes. And
yeah, I want to say he was drafted the same year that Tucker went undrafted, and he was also in camp with Chris Boswell.
To be fair, Boswell was not nearly anywhere close to as good as he ended up being in Pittsburgh when he first got in. He was actually there were moments where he was like flat out bad. And it was
to be fair, Justin Tucker wasn't awesome at Texas. I mean, he was good. He had some good moments. He was a kickoff specialist for 4 years. I think he was only the kicker for 2. He had the kick against the Aggies, but he was also like a rugby punter. So, yeah, both of them were just better when they got in the league.
And if I'm not mistaken, Fat Randy was the Lou Groza Award winner. So,
yeah, he was good.
There were high hopes. Kylie Fairbairn, also a Lou Groza Award winner.
Kyle says, has Cade Stover been, I think he means cut. Has he been cut yet? He has not. He actually had a good little off-season / OTA. Took advantage of Marlon Klein's absence. Looks like he's in really, really good shape. So he has not been cut. He's there. He's probably feeling better about himself now than he did after the draft and heading into camp.
I think Kyle was asking if he was cute. So I don't know. Maybe you know better than I do.
He corrected it. He said cut. There you go.
There you go. Okay. Thank you, Kyle, for the clarification. Also, I know what you did this weekend. You watched the Foster Moreau interview and you were like, yep, special teams, it matters again. So we started Monday with special teams because Foster Moreau claimed the NFL's trying to get rid of it. If you missed that interview, there's a link in the description down below. Watch it after the show. You'll enjoy it. Foster Moreau's fantastic.
Yeah, special teams. He knows how important it is, and he went all the way down the special teams. I just like when you see something that you've never seen and you also factor in the dependency on Kylie Fairbairn, I think it matters. And then you talk about a team that is very one-sided in the top 2 phases on defense, and you have punters that are shanking punts. Not ideal, I would say. So I think the special teams, I think the concern over the special teams is something to, at the very least, acknowledge and point to, no doubt. Where is CJ Stroud among AFC South quarterbacks? And we know that CJ Stroud is obviously heading into the most crucial part of his the most crucial year of his entire career, and one of the most I think most hyped up crucial individual seasons in franchise history. Where is CJ Stroud among AFC South QBs when it comes to pressure? Is there anyone else that's even on the same stratosphere? I think the answer to that would be no, but there is pressure in different ways for the guys that play the most important position in the division.
Just from a pressure standpoint, Stroud is absolutely under the most pressure. It's year 2 for it's year 2 for Cam Ward and a new offense. So that lessens a little bit of what you would put on the shoulders of a franchise QB. Daniel Jones is coming off of an injury. They invested multi-year into him, even though it's a bad contract. And then Trevor Lawrence, I think there's some pressure to replicate and maybe even grow off of what he did last year. But it pales in comparison from a pressure standpoint of what CJ Stroud is, because if Lawrence is bad, Trevor Lawrence is still getting another year. If CJ Stroud's not very good, CJ Stroud's playing for a different team in 2027. Trevor Lawrence is for sure the Jaguars quarterback in 2027.
Yeah, it's Cam Ward is the obvious answer. And according to Buck Rising, he says that Cam Ward's not looking good in practice. And I don't know, like every media group. I think Buck Rising does one of the best jobs of covering Tennessee. There's typically a grasp. He's watching it. He's covering it. I respect what he does on the air, but he basically called bad Cam Ward practices routine, which it led to must be a slow news time type of vibe. But I don't know what to really make of Cam Ward. Like, what are the expectations really for Cam Ward? Like, this isn't, even though he was the first pick in the draft, I don't think the feel was like Trevor Lawrence after he had Urban Meyer. It was like, well, they got to make this work or else, it's it's the end of the world. If Cam Ward doesn't work out, I don't think that Robert Saleh is necessarily tied to him. And quite frankly, like, are you buying Cam Ward stock right now? I think he has. They did a good job of adding some pieces around him. They got some better weapons. They did bring in Brian Dable, but how much pressure is there really on Cam Ward at this point? It's and if there is, like, are you buying Cam Ward stock?
I just can't see how they could put that much pressure on the guy when he had a bumbling idiot as a coach last year. And I'm not saying they're starting at zero with him, because there was a moment here or there that was pretty nice from the rookie season, but it was a lot of bad football played by Cam Ward last year. And so I'd be interested to know how close to starting from scratch Brian Daboll is with Cam Ward, how many things he has to go about and correct. It was not a statistically impressive season. He started every game, which is good experience. And he did probably played a lot of football where it's like, hey, don't replicate this. But I'm not buying Cam Ward stock. I like the coaching staff that they put around him. They added to his offensive weaponry, but it's still a really bad offensive line. And I'm not sure that I love Cam Ward as even like a quarterback prospect, comparing him to a bunch of the prospects from the past few seasons. So I have low expectations, but it feels like it's pretty easy for him to get over those low expectations if Daboll's still a good coach and he has anything of note at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, I just want to see what it looks like with Cam Ward. I don't think it's kind of felt like Trevor Lawrence kind of had to do everything in Jacksonville for a while. They've gotten away from that. But like when he first got there, it was basically like Trevor Lawrence, be the savior, save us, carry us, all that. And then
both 3-14 in their first year, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had the Urban Meyer disaster and all that. So it felt like that with Cam Ward. I think they're just trying to surround him. And I actually think they've done a pretty good job. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Saleh. But there are signs of some good with Cam Ward. There's some signs of some bad, but I actually think their weapons are pretty underrated, specifically with Tate and then Robinson with Dable. I think they've done a pretty good job of at least improving what he has around him.
It feels to me like it's a tiny bit easier to like statistically say, hey, Cam Ward should do this, Cam Ward should do that, versus some of the other quarterbacks that we would talk about. Like, I don't have I have a statistical plateau that, like, if CJ got to, I'd be like, yep, that's a good season. The team's probably really good, but it's more kind of, I just need to see the season with Stroud. Whereas with Cam Ward, if I told you he threw 22 touchdowns, about 8 interceptions and 3,500 yards, that's a really good improvement over last season.
Yeah, it's good enough for sure. What is the next step for Trevor Lawrence is the other question. We really haven't seen him pile on like consecutive good seasons. I think he's coming off probably a better season than CJ Stroud had last year. I don't even think it's probably like, I think he's coming off of that. They are the division champs. I don't think they were the best team in the division at the end of last season. I compare that to 2018 when the Texans won the division and the Colts were clearly better. They beat their ass in the playoffs. 21-7, and it wasn't even really as close as the score. What is the next step for Trevor Lawrence? Like, is it do you believe in Trevor Lawrence taking the next step, or is he just kind of where he is right now?
I could see him being a little bit better than last year statistically, but for me, Trevor Lawrence, it's some of those big game moments, those game winners, those daggers to opposing defenses. That's what I think about with Trevor Lawrence. Like, statistically, yeah, I feel like Liam Cohen coached quarterbacks for the foreseeable future are going to have good statistics. I mean, he was a top 6, top 7 passer in yardage. He threw nearly 30 touchdowns. Like, statistically, I think that's going to be present for Lawrence. But like, is he putting guys away? Is he leading those game-winning drives? Is he just consistent? Like, we've watched so many Trevor Lawrence games where it's 3rd and 7 and he sails a pass and they got to go punt. And it's like, I feel like a lot of quarterbacks would have made that pass. I think that's for Trevor Lawrence, like the next evolution for him. It's not the statistics. It's not the big passing numbers or touchdowns. It's putting teams away in games that matter. That's, to me, the next thing for Trevor Lawrence.
I think he has one of the most underrated wide receiver groups in football potentially. And one of the stories out of Jags camp has been, and maybe this is just coping, but our mini camp, I should say, is Brian Thomas Jr. is finally healthy, and Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. are connecting on deep balls. And you've heard Liam Cohen talk about that. You've heard Brian Thomas come out and say that he's more healthy, and last year was tough for him. It was a bad second year for Brian Thomas Jr. to say the very least. It was really, really bad. But if he does kind of figure it out, you look at that wide receiver group. They have Parker Washington, who I think is one of the most underrated players, not just in the division. I think he's one of the most underrated players in football potentially. Jacoby Myers is kind of stable. And then Travis Hunter, there's been talks that he's just going to play defense. They say not so fast, my friends. We know what he can do. Their wide receiver group is incredibly underrated, and there is a lot of potential there. So Trevor Lawrence does have some weapons, and you look at how good the Jags were last year, and they're pretty good. The fact that Brian Thomas Jr. was as disappointing as he was, and the target share was way different. There were, I think it was damn near 40 plus less targets. So maybe that had something to do with the production, but they weren't on the same page, and you saw him dropping passes and all that. If he does just kind of get closer to what he was in year one, I think that's kind of something to take into account too with the Jags, that they have a very, very solid receiver group. I think whether Brian Thomas Jr. balls out or not, but if he does, then I think you're talking about one of the more underrated in the entire league.
I mean, it's a great room. They're going to get an offseason to further integrate Jacoby Myers after they added him in the middle of the year, and that kind of helped them get things going. You and I both like Parker Washington. I'm a big Brian Thomas Jr. fan. If he's saying he's better, and I thought Travis Hunter was the best wide receiver in the draft where he came out, and he unfortunately is doing the goofy tooth position thing, and I don't think it's really helped him out. But if he's going to play a little bit more wide receiver and there's a little bit less pressure, because I do feel like there was some pressure to be amazing on both sides of the football right as he got there. Hey, they got Myers, they got Washington, BTJ. The pressure gets lessened a little bit with Hunter. Maybe he's a little bit better and more interesting as a wide receiver than he was. And I know this isn't wide receiver, but like Britton Strange, their tight end's a good pass catcher as well. We know they drafted the blocker in the draft, but Britton Strange, their tight end's a good pass catcher as well. And he got banged up last year and was hurt last year. So if he's healthy, it's a really good pass catching group in Jacksonville.
Cohen actually mentioned him, like when he was talking about Brian Thomas Jr. He's like, yeah, if Brian Thomas Jr. can get going, that opens it up for Strange and vice versa. I think their offense, their weapons, interesting. Running back situation, something to keep an eye on.
It's bad
there. Then we go to the Colts, and I'm just asking, like, does anyone really believe the best is yet to come with Jones? Like Daniel Jones getting a 2-year contract for what he got. I think it's just I don't even know that it was like, it was just so ridiculous. It was just like one of those things that you didn't even really get criticized. It just didn't really make a lot of sense for Indianapolis, who they were competing with, unless there was like some sort of deal before they got hurt. But is anyone sitting here thinking, okay, Daniel Jones is just going to come out and it's going to look like it did at the start of last season? I don't think there's anyone that's actually buying that or believing that.
No, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't. The guy, it started to fall off before the injuries showed up. The injuries showed up. He's going to be coming back from the injuries. And their defense is, I think their defense is not going to set him up. Like it's going to be, their offense has to be good. Whereas CJ Stroud has a little bit more room for error. I think even a little bit in Jacksonville, there's some room for error because the defense can make some plays. Their defense isn't going to make a bunch of plays and set him up. So it's going to be on his back. And I get that he was very efficient for a good portion of the season, but there's no consistency with him. There's no long-term belief. He was excellent that year in New York compared to his previous years, and they paid him, and then it was a disaster. Like and when he was excellent that year in New York, some of it was the mobility. He rushed for 700 yards. So it's not happening again for Daniel Jones. They made a horrible mistake. I don't know how they still have Chris Ballard as a general manager. That team stinks. And it's not going to surprise me if they're 4-4 in the AFC South.
Swarm.
WB FX says we are breaking Danny's leg this year. Goodness gracious, man.
Jeez.
Goodness gracious.
Take it
Getting
easy,
violent.
Sean Payton.
Patrick, the Dinger says, did y'all hear Moreau pronounce it More-O?
He did say his name differently than most everybody else says it.
Yeah, he did. Well, I mean, I think he'd probably know. So, yeah, I'm still going to say Moreau.
But every pronunciation guide that I could find has it the way most of us have been saying it, is Moreau. But him saying Moro, is this one of those ETN things where he's trying to change his name after he's been in the league enough years? Like, I don't know. We may need to. I like him enough that I could catch up and clarify with him, I guess. But it's going to be tough to not call him Moreau, because that's what everybody's calling him. More-O,
which is what the Texans need. So it could be kind of a theme. They need more O, which was kind of how we started this. They need more O.
Maybe that's all they needed.
Maybe that was the sign. Maybe that was the sign. Or maybe Nick Caserio misunderstood. And D'Amico, they said, we need more O. And then they thought they had to go get more O, the player. Maybe there's just like a big misunderstanding there. Mike the car guy says we take Fairbairn for granted. They definitely get everything they can out of him. I don't know. I think they know. They're very aware of what he does for them. I think there might be kind of this is the way that kickers are around here, when I don't know that every team is living that comfortably and getting bailed out as consistently. Cliff says, do y'all honestly think they will cut CJ if he plays the same as last year? 0% chance that happens.
We have also never said they're going to cut CJ.
Yeah, that has never happened. So no, there's a 0% chance. Jalen says, I think Cam Ward can be pretty good, but they need to have better talent and coaching around him. They brought in Brian Dable. They brought in Wan'Dale Robinson. They drafted Tate. They added some offensive linemen. They still have Tony Pollard. Pretty good, pretty decent surroundings for him. And a defense can be a quarterback's best friend too. They've brought in a really respected defensive mind, and they've made some moves there. So it feels like if surroundings are the issue, they've done a good job of helping him out.
They've created a situation where they can find out with enough surroundings that they can confidently blame him and not the surroundings. That offensive line still sucks, though. They're gonna get massacred still again.
Keto San says the whole Fairbairn segment, geez, dude, just trying to make stuff up to fill air in the quiet part of the offseason, laughing emoji.
Well, it's not making stuff up. We're there. We watch the whole practice. We take notes. We pay attention.
What would be made up?
Attendance. What did we make up?
I said he missed 2 field goals for the first time since I've been covering him for 10 plus years. I said they depend on the kicker too much. I said that the punting competition is rough, and I said that the offense needs to do more. What's made up there?
And the offense settles for too many 50-plus yard field goals.
And I've never like been there and seen him miss 2 consecutive field goals ever. Like 10 plus years. So that's a bitch made comment, honestly. I don't know like what would be made up there. Like that's just based on facts. I'm not saying Kaimi Fairbairn's going to suck. I'm saying kickers typically fall off at this time. Speaking of falling off, Titus Howard's gone. Have you noticed this? I don't know if you noticed this.
What a transition.
But in my entire time of watching the Texans, covering the Texans, I don't think there's ever been a player who was a good player who started for the team for damn near 7 seasons, 6, 7 seasons, however far back we go with Titus Howard. And we just completely forgot about him. Like, there's not like hey, how are they going to replace Titus Howard? It just feels like it's almost like a better vibe with Titus Howard, or maybe there's just no concern. Maybe we're taking him for granted. There's talk about the Kaimi Fairbairn thing. Like, maybe we're taking Titus Howard for granted, because not at any point did I look at the offensive line and say, damn, it's really weird not having 71 out there. It never it didn't happen at all. And maybe I'm missing something. I will say, if they do have to shuffle the offensive line, maybe that's where you miss Titus Howard. If people aren't able to adjust accordingly and shuffle around, I thought that was one of his strengths last year. But I just think it's crazy that Yeah, there's not even like there's not even like a second thought about Titus Howard not being out there, even though we've seen him out there for a while.
Am I supposed to lament his exit?
No, I'm just explain this to me. Like, do you notice that? How are you feeling about that?
I mean, it's the other element too is it's not like when they got rid of Laramie Tunsil, we were for it. We understood there were maybe going to be some challenges, and they ended up with Ariante Ursery, and it was fine. There were people across the nation who don't pay attention, who weren't in the locker room, who don't know, and it's like, oh, this great Laramie Tunsil loss. How are they going to do this? What are they doing? Nobody said that about Titus Howard. It's a very okay player that the Cleveland Browns proceeded to vastly overpay. The only time he's come up for me in the offseason conversation was last week when you and I were trying to go through the backup left tackle conversation. And it was like, well, they kept this, they did that, and this many guys are active on game day. And it's like, oh, well, Titus was active and was a potential backup tackle, so that kind of helped you on game day. That's the only time I've talked about it this offseason.
I've gone from thinking that Trent Brown might not be able to step on the field last year to now like, oh yeah, he's the backup left tackle too.
He might be. I mean, if they have 3 tackles active on game day, let's say it's Brown starting at right tackle, Ariante Ursery at left tackle, and Braden Smith at right tackle. Brown's the only one that can play left tackle if Ursery goes down. Teller can't bump out. Ingram can't bump out. Rutledge can't do it. The backup center can't do it, whoever that is. I mean, like if it's Evan Brown can't do that. It's like Trent Brown is the only one that can play left tackle unless they keep 2 backup tackles active on game day.
I think that's going to be one of the things like on the field that gets cranked up the most is like tackle depth with the undrafted guys with Blake Fisher. I think that's where there's going to be like a real hard evaluation of what's going on at backup tackle. Like I'll equate it to, and I've used this name more than I thought I would ever use it in the last 4 days. You know what name I'm about to mention? Matt Khalil. Like it's not like at the top of the depth chart, but I think on the back end of the depth chart, I think eventually with Matt Khalil, it was like, okay, we need to figure out if this guy can play, because if he can't play, we got to do something. And they obviously did something pretty damn extreme when they figured out that he couldn't play, and they made the previously mentioned Laramie Tunsil trade. But I think they're going to have to look at these guys, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to do tackle depth-wise, because there is a chance, like as we talk about like playing with fire, there's a chance that they only have 3 tackles that can play, and one of those guys is hurt all the time. And the other one, it's reasonable to believe he's going to get hurt. Like between Braden Smith, Trent Brown, and Ariante Ursery, there's a chance that they have only 3 tackles that can actually play in an NFL game. And I'm intrigued by the undrafted guys. It's just a lot to ask an undrafted guy to just, hey, this is your swing tackle. Like, here you go. This is your backup left tackle. So I'm intrigued by those guys, especially Neal, but there is a chance, and that's really something that I think they're going to be watching closely and challenging these guys. There is a chance that there's only 3 tackles on this team that can actually be serviceable tackles in an NFL game, unless you believe that Blake Fisher is one of those guys. I don't believe that.
I mean, he didn't look good filling in for Laramie Tunsil when he had to step in there. He's not had success since then. They tried to keep him off the field last year with the offensive line combination gymnastics. So Fisher's not that guy. Yeah, it's not ideal. It's one of those scenarios where they have to have a plan in case they get to it. Ursery, pretty durable last year, played through a pretty significant hand injury for the back part of that season, or middle back part of the season. So you'd hope that he stays durable, but if he had an extended absence, that's the guy that has nobody with NFL experience to back up his spot. By
the way, I want to ask you this. This is a random question, and I want the people, and I do mean you people. Shout out to all Z people. Which was weirder when we look back at it last year? The Joe Mixon injury thing and the way they handled that. All right, I'll put it this way. The way they handled it, not the injury. There's nothing weirder than the whole Joe Mixon injury. So that, But the way they handled the Joe Mixon injury, or the way that they tried to tell us that Titus Howard wasn't stripping C.J. Stroud when he clearly stripped C.J. Stroud and gaslit us about that, which was weirder.
The Titus strip sack.
Dude, I get Joe Mixon. I'm sure there's like some behind the scenes type of thing where they don't want to say anything. He doesn't want to say anything. And they're trying to make the relationship right. And the damage had been done. So there really wasn't any reason to do it. I can understand that. Gaslighting us and telling us that Titus Howard wasn't trying to do what we've seen successfully done in football games by offensive linemen before, and act like he wasn't trying to strip CJ Stroud. And there were actually people that actually believed that and took them at their word. That was the most ridiculous gaslighting that I think I've ever witnessed in my entire life. That was Twilight Zone type stuff.
Who believed him?
There were people online that were like, yeah, you know.
I thought you meant somebody in the locker room believed him.
I mean, he seemed to believe it.
Bro.
Aaron did report it, didn't he?
Aaron was the one that got
bro. Alpha Aaron.
I wasn't even thinking about Aaron there.
The clarifying quote.
God, that was terrible. That was terrible.
I'm very much not a fan of. I'm not a fan of trying to do too much. That was one of the ultimate try to do too much.
That was one of those. I don't even need to hear you say it. I saw it.
Yeah, for the 2024 season,
and it could have been sick if he would have stripped it. He might have had some room. We could have seen what Titus had.
Yeah.
Rolo says he's never heard of this Titus guy, so he's already moved on. Brandon on the chat says a lot when everyone
thinks.
I guess he's saying thinks the O-line room suddenly improved because Titus is gone. It is weird. It is kind of weird.
Well, they brought in guys with much better resumes than Titus Howard. Wyatt Teller's got a way better resume. Braden Smith's got a way better resume.
He got broke off too, though. That's what's crazy is that he got broke off the way he did.
Yeah, but the Cleveland Browns, who have 3 punters.
But still.
Swarm.
And 8 quarterbacks. DeRhino says, thank y'all for holding us down during the football offseason. I know it's not the easiest, but y'all kill it. We love it, dude. It's not. It is. It's. You have to do more and work harder during the quiet time. It's much easier when it's just kind of on autopilot and you get in the routine. But it's fun, man. It's fun. We very much enjoy it.
Well, thank you for watching us and supporting us, DeRhino, and everybody watching.
Yeah. The stand-up comic, DeRhino, telling some funny jokes. So training camp begins in 7 weeks. And 7+ weeks, we'll say 7-ish.
7-ish, probably. I think it's a little bit less than 7 weeks.
7 weeks, 6 weeks.
7-ish is good.
We can say 6 weeks in a day or something, like just a guess. Price is Right style.
We could say, we could say 6 weeks in a couple of days.
6 weeks and whatever. It begins in 7 weeks ish. They'll tell us eventually. It's probably going to be less than 7, right?
Do you know something?
I don't know. Anyway, what do you think on day 1 of training camp with padded practice? What can we see that will matter most over the course of the entire duration of the season? In other words, I know that's not everything. I know the games are going to matter. But when the pads come on, what is the one thing that you can see that day that you think you'll see that will matter the most when it comes to the Texans reaching the goals that they've laid out?
Running the ball. Because if they can run the ball against this front 7, they can run the ball against damn near anybody.
Yeah, and I also think that's something that you can tell in camp is running the ball. Like you can get a pretty good grasp of if they're going to be able to run the ball. At least this squad, the last few years, you've gotten a pretty good grasp of it. That is going to be really interesting to see. Now, I'll take this a step further. We both agree on that. Based on that, how do you think it'll look when they run the ball?
I'm confident.
I actually think it's going to look okay.
I'm confident. I like Teller. I like healthier than he was a year ago, Trent Brown or Braden Smith, who at right tackle. I'm not super skeptical of Ed Ingram. The way that they paid him, there's hope that he's better, I'm sure, by the way that they paid him.
Yeah, they've never paid an offensive lineman like that. They probably shouldn't. They got a good
I'm talking
track
about the financial investment they made. The hope was not that he's the same guy. The hope that he plays better.
Mm-hmm.
And then whoever the center is, I mean, it's Jake or Rutledge or Brown. I have confidence. Montgomery's a much better running back than Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I think running the ball is going to be something that we're going to know right off the top. We knew last year that at least we had a pretty good idea that they weren't going to be able to run the ball. The year before, it was obvious that Joe Mixon was pretty good. You saw that Singletary is better. Like, I think running the ball is something that you can see right off the top. And the other thing about it is, I know they've always said that they want to run the ball. Their actions don't always like resemble that of a team that is 100% committed to running the ball. Like, all the offensive linemen's skill sets are run blocking. It feels that way. I don't know if Andrews is. I don't know what his skill, what his strength is, to be honest with you. But like, between Teller, Ingram, Trent Brown, Braden Smith, I guess Ursery's more of like the complete guy. But like, all those guys, like, their strength is run blocking. So
Rutledge, if he ends up starting at center, run blocking is his thing.
100%. So I would say that the run game, I'm with you on that. Another thing that I was thinking about today. So I feel like there was a lot of anticipation and a lot of assumption that Fabechi Wiwu, I know you didn't think this was coming, that this name was coming.
I didn't expect to talk about Fabechi Wiwu today, no.
No, but there was like an assumption that he was going to be a center. That's not happening, right? Like, it looks like they just like him as a guard.
He didn't take any center snaps.
Yeah, so we can kind of reevaluate that. Like, the notion that he was going to be a center and that was going to be part of his thing, they obviously just like him as a guard. So I think we can throw that to the side. And that was hilarious, seeing kind of the shuffling and the assumption that this guy was going to be like some sort of center or starting center. He's a guard. Like, it feels like he's a guard unless something crazy just happens. Like, he's not even like a top 4 center.
I never even considered him as a center. So,
yeah, I didn't understand the pick to begin with, but yeah. So there you go. The Fabechi Wiwu center thing, we can just throw that to the side, though.
Yes,
getting in the trenches there. Correct. So there you go.
Yeah,
Fabechi Wiwu and punters.
Your four center options are Jake Andrews, Keelan Rutledge, Evan Brown, and Eli Cox.
Yes.
And if one of those guys got abducted by aliens, I think Jared Patterson would take their spot as the fifth center.
I don't know. They might try the alien out at this point. They want nothing to do with Jared Patterson. They might try the alien out, my friend.
Maybe.
You think Jared Patterson's at camp?
Yes, but I could also see him before the end of camp. Some team has a guy go down, and
maybe there's like a team that has a DN. That's the DN version of Jared Patterson.
Sure, I'd like to see Jared Patterson and Blake Fisher be traded for the D-end version of them from another team and see what the Texans can do with it.
I will say this, though. Jared Patterson, very much appreciated. Very solid 6th round pick.
Absolutely.
Very solid 6th round pick.
He's had a better career than Blake Fisher's had.
It's kind of wild because you draft a guy in the 6th round and then all of a sudden he's the starting center during a really good season. And then suddenly he's better than the guy that you drafted in the 2nd round. So I think there's like a natural desire for people to kind of hold him to a different standard than perhaps he was. Cause it almost feels like with him and Juice Scruggs, like he's the one that was drafted in the 2nd round and Juice Scruggs was the 6th round pick. And it's like Juice Scruggs performed like a 6th round pick and Jared Patterson performed like a 2nd round pick that probably didn't live up to the expectations that you had, but he was still closer to that 2nd round pick here than Juice Scruggs was. I haven't heard anything about Juice Scruggs with the Lions, but that's just kind of how it feels with Jared Patterson. But much appreciation, I think, should be shown for what Jared Patterson did with what God gave him.
I absolutely think that Jared Patterson has a place on a 53-man roster. I just don't believe it's going to be with the Houston Texans.
No, they've drafted many a guys to replace Jared Patterson. Many a guys.
Yeah, Rutledge and Weewoo as guard options, Brown in here as a guard/center option. They just it's the Patterson kind of he played well enough to make himself too expensive to keep for his level of talent.
Yeah, it's crazy how that contract went. Nick Caserio might actually read a 4-minute statement about Jared Patterson whenever they let him go. Whenever he has his media availability, I could see Nick Caserio going up there, praising Jared Patterson for everything he did.
I would also say too, like Fabechi Weewoo's only on the team over Jared Patterson because they've drafted him in the 4th round. It's not like I think Fabechi Weewoo's a better football player than Jared Patterson.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I would also say if they had to play a game tomorrow, they would obviously feel better about Patterson out there than Weewoo.
Correct.
But I think they would feel better about Rutledge out there than Patterson. So I think it's not just as simple as rookie
and Brown.
Yes.
Evan Brown, not Trent Brown.
Yeah, Evan Brown. Cody's becoming an Evan Brown guy. You can kind of feel it. He's liking these centers. He's liking the Andrews and the Brown combo.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other on Evan Brown.
Except that he is center 3 or 2. Who knows? All right, that's the countdown to camp today. We appreciate everyone for rolling through. Let's talk about Prize Picks. And the NBA season is over. Apparently, there's a tournament going on, and apparently Cody is an expert on this sport. I did not know him, but now Cody is an expert on soccer. And good news for him is Prize Picks. Not only do they have your NFL futures covered, but they have your soccer fix. In fact, Cody called me today and said, "What are we doing on the soccer show?" And I said, "Soccer? What are you talking about?" I said, "Football." He said, "No, football is actually the sport that's going on right now with the World Cup." And I was like, "Okay, now we're just getting weird." All right, go ahead.
That didn't happen. You get World Cup certainly with you on Prize Picks. You got World Cup first halves. You got World Cup throughout the course, and look at all the different things: passes attempted, shots on target, just regular old shots. They got a little bit of anything and everything for you when it comes to Prize Picks. Of course, WNBA, tennis, PGA, the UFC. When it gets going with Conor McGregor here in a couple of weeks, people are going to want to see McGregor back in there. But I'm going to baseball.
Jordan Alvarez, here we go.
It's baseball season right now. You know what I'm doing. The good old faithful Jordan was a monster on Friday night in the
6 RBI in the first inning.
Stupid pitcher almost ruined it. Let's have a little fun here. Let's go Jordan Ohtani home run double up tonight. Why not? Let's just have a little fun. Been having some success with the footy. I'm going to have some fun here with Jordan and Ohtani. My go-tos when I don't know what to go to on Prize Picks. They got the teams and the pop culture as well. This is Prize Picks. You're making predictions more or less on given stats, put them together in one entry from 2 different teams, and you can multiply your winnings. You can get all correct, more than 2 entries. You can do the flex play. You can still win, not get them all correct. And when you sign up with the code HMA, play your first $5, you get $50 in free lineups when you sign up with the code HMA. There's a link in the description down below.
The mine's going to be a game time decision. You can follow me at Landry Locker. You can go against the picks, or you can go with the picks. I'm going to focus on the pitchers. I'm not going to Old Faithful. Jordan Alvarez. I feel like Cody's taking him more for granted than the Texans do Kami Fairbairn at this point, with how many times he's asking him to carry him when it comes to Prize Picks. Although, just like Kami, he's kind of coming through, if I'm being completely honest about it.
Yeah, him and Ohtani done more good for me than bad. I'll say that.
That is a fact. All right, so Texans Collective tonight. Looking forward to that with Sean and Reggie. Be sure to subscribe to the Collective. Be sure to ride along. The countdown to camp is upon us. We'll say 6 6 weeks. We'll say 6 weeks and I don't know, give or take a few days till training camp begins. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. Be sure to always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.
It's football, dude. It's football.